I cannot wait for this panel discussion, getting with the program, harnessing cryptocurrency and NFTs for real world impact. For those of you who are just tuning in, Pat Duffy is the co-founder of The Giving Block, a platform that helps nonprofits fundraise non-cash assets more effectively. His work in non-cash giving has been featured in many publications and awarded Forbes 30 under 30 in 2022. Pat, I am so excited to let you take this panel away. And thanks again for being here today.
Yeah, stoked to do it. So very pumped for this panel. We've got some awesome people on this one. This will be the panel where we talk about the real world use cases and applications that we're seeing with crypto and NFTs when it comes to nonprofits. The 2:15 session is going to be kind of a 101 and rundown on how it all works. Today we have Sara Baumann, founder of Women and Weapons. We've got Peter Chasse, founder and president of the Water Project. And we've got Angelo Kalaw, ecosystem strategy partner at the Celo Foundation. Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you guys for having us.
Yeah, we're stoked. So I'm going to get right into the content because we've got three of the best voices in the space here today. I'm going to kick it over to Peter to get started, someone who's been fundraising crypto for a super long time. Peter actually received a 6-figure Bitcoin donation this morning through the Giving Block, just as a little aside. So congratulations on that. Super, super exciting. We've got a lot of nonprofits here today attending the session who aren't really familiar with Web3, cryptocurrency, blockchain, NFTs, and the billions of dollars that have been donated to charity so far that are coming from the sector. So for the newbies in the audience, what would you say, as someone who's been doing it a while, is one of the most important things for them to know about cryptocurrency and or NFTs? Oh, Peter, I think you're on mute.
Pardon. I would say right out of the gate, the thing that people like to hear is the check clears. When you take the money to the bank, it acts just like cash, and the auditors count it the same way, and it empowers your programs. It works. The cryptocurrency is the real deal. I think, aside from that light kind of intro, some things that I didn't know and that we've learned over the years, and especially in the last couple of years, is crypto in the nonprofit space is actually better regulated than you think. There's been a few of us, the trailblazers, that have kind of gone ahead and figured out the rules of the road, tax forms that need to be done. Of course, Giving Block helps enormously in this process to kind of help you get going. But there are answers to questions. I often think a lot of times, I know from my position as a nonprofit leader, being the first means you're the first to figure out all of the T's and I's that even need to be crossed. We don't even know what those are. And that can be scary for a board because we're always trying to manage risk with limited resources. And again, folks like Giving Block, the trailblazers that have gone ahead and been accepting crypto for a few years, we've stumbled through these questions. And we've learned how to make sure that we're being good stewards of both the process and the donations that come in. And that work's been done. So you can kind of jump on the bandwagon now and get moving and not have to worry about that piece. It's very low risk. You don't even have to touch crypto if you're working with a vendor like the Giving Block. It converts immediately into cash. So this is something that unattended at 3 a.m. can be taken care of it for you. So you don't have to somebody watching this all the time. That was not true in my day. I spent many a very early morning trying to figure out what we were going to do with the latest gift that came in. And then I think the big one, and then I'll leave it to the rest of the team, is, and this is a really fun one to think about because we're just coming out of a discussion on community, a few minutes ago. Boy, this is a whole new segment of donors that you may not have been encountered because of perhaps the demographic of your cause. Sometimes causes are bound by, the network that their board brought to the table or that their founder brought to the table initially, and sometimes those can be limiting. There are people out there that love what you do and the cause and the mission that you are on, and this is a chance to meet a group that has a myriad of interests. It's, often, eclectic technical kind of things. Maybe that group they tend to be the risk takers, but they're also highly networked individuals. These are folks that learned about Bitcoin because they were in a network, or crypto. They were in a network that told them about it. And so they're going to be very willing to tell the rest of their network about your organization as well. And so to kind of look at it as an opportunity for community too. I think are some of the really kind of key high level points of crypto. It's real. It's a real thing. The money clears. It's safe, relatively safe. Credit cards aren't that safe in comparison. And it's a great group. It's a great community, just deeply philanthropic and altruistic. And it's just wonderful to see that part of the movement.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to get us started on all of this. We're going to talk through a bunch of things the technology can do. We're going to go over to NFTs next. But even as we talk through these technologies, like you're saying, Peter, it's a spectrum. There are a lot of nonprofits who want to take crypto donations. When a donor wants to give this way, they've got a huge tax incentive. Just let it liquidate and apply it to your mission. Like that's a starting point that literally every nonprofit can do. And then there are nonprofits who want to get a bit more creative, build a younger donor base, do some interesting things, which brings me over to Sara. So NFTs have definitely been one of the most explosive fundraising areas in Web3. I can think a couple years ago in particular when it went on an absolute tear. We were doing a fundraiser with water.org and Gary Vaynerchuk and Stella Artois. They did that big drop. We did all these different fundraisers, and NFT artists were really becoming this cool source of income for nonprofits. As an artist and then a founder in the space, could you share a bit about what you've learned founding Women in Weapons and what your thoughts are when it comes to NFTs having a positive social impact?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, a lot of these communities were formed out of COVID, right? When a lot of us were kind of flocking to the internet for community, for social engagement and what have you. And I think one of the things that we learned is that there's enormous potential and global potential from the internet communities for rallying around a common goal, right? And so for my case with Women in Weapons, it was a large community of people from around the world who kind of flocked to a common interest, which was my artwork and the meaning behind my artwork and everything, but also this opportunity to make education a woman's weapon. And so, for example, with Women in Weapons, we were able to donate over $170,000 to the Malala Fund, heavily, appreciated to the Giving Block. But, with primary trading, with secondary trading, with the use of blockchain, with the use of smart contracts, it makes the transition very seamless for donating crypto through these NFTs. And, people just love to have something that they can really rally around, something, whether it's a set of artworks, whether it's a cause, whether it's a community, whatever it may be, that seems to be a really phenomenal catalyst for philanthropy.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a lot of alignment between the causes and then, of course, the artists and what they can build out to help them raise. Then moving over to Angelo. Funny that we've never talked about this, Angelo, but Celo had a retreat back a year into starting the Giving Block. Alex and I were just sending out cold emails, and we were out there in San Francisco and met a bunch of interesting people in the crypto space. It was one of our first cool kind of in-person crypto moments. But stable coins are a bigger topic of conversation in the nonprofit sector in the last few years for a couple of reasons. One, because so many donations happen in stable coins, the more that they become widely adopted, in particular in bear market conditions, it becomes like this really dominant force in bull market conditions too as well. And then two, the use cases. Like there's folks I think of like Chris Maurice, the founder of Yellow Card, the exchange in Africa, where this giant company that's grown a ton and aligned with all these giant corporate partners, and people are trying to send money back and forth between each other. They're doing it really efficiently and at scale in a way where the traditional fiat currencies in those regions didn't work in the conversion rates. Stablecoins have been one of the most donated crypto types for the last 3 years, and Celo's impact on the space has been massive and very diverse. So could you explain a little bit about what a stablecoin is to the nonprofits on the call, and then expand a bit on this concept of refi and why Celo believes it's going to impact the economic future?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So I represent Celo. We are a layer one blockchain. So among the tech stacks that different builders as well as like organizations can choose if they want to use distributed ledger technology. And one of the applications of this technology, as Pat mentioned, is like the emergence of like stable coins, right? And essentially, a stable coin is a digital asset that lives on the blockchain. And compared to the other crypto that our audience might be familiar with, stable coins normally track or pegged to a value of a known asset or currency. Most often fiat like US dollar or euro, but sometimes to an index or like a known commodity. And with this, the advantage is you hold a digital asset that has stable value, which is where the name stable coins come from. And when you combine this with the benefits of blockchain, which is like decentralization and like low-cost transfers, you could imagine a world of use cases that it opens up. So, for example, remittances, holding digital assets in countries with hyperinflation or countries with restrictive foreign exchange regimes. And mostly these are like emerging economies, no? Think about Venezuela, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, among others. And so stable coins, as Pat mentioned, has emerged to be like one of the most useful applications of blockchain and a safe way as well as like a convenient way to course through donations and do fundraising. So Celo has emerged to be a natural home for stablecoins, especially because of this intersection of emerging markets, financial inclusion, and refi that we believe in. Right now, within the Celo blockchain, for example, we have USDC, by Circle, Tether, Ag Euro, Glow Dollar, and our native Mento assets, which is tied to CUSD, C Euro, and a local stable named C Brazilian Real. And what I want to emphasize here is like compared to other digital assets, one benefit that I want to highlight is composability because aside from being able to transfer assets digitally and at low cost, for example, for the Celo blockchain, it involves less than a cent to transfer from one wallet to the other. One important thing to highlight here is composability because we're able to use stable coins to develop financial products and services that have been traditionally exclusionary. And then at the same time, it unleashes a lot of like innovation possibilities. No, I want to cite, for example, the example of Glow Dollar, one of the stable coins on the Celo blockchain. By holding Glow Dollar, for example, you are able to earn yield on your stable coin, similar to like holding, a financial asset. But then these yields are used to fund public goods and poverty alleviation effort. And I think I haven't heard any of these assets that like automatically like has this community empowerment in its core or mission. And so at Celo, our mission is to leverage the technology to enable prosperity for all, and this is what we think when we kind of like rally behind the concept of like refi or regenerative finance. And we know that Web3 is a powerful tool for us to make this happen, for us to really unlock new opportunities for emerging markets, for individuals, communities that have been sidelined or traditionally excluded from the financial system. So exciting developments here, and as we've seen, like in this panel, there's a lot of like applications that can be helpful for your mission as a nonprofit.
So a lot to unpack there, right? Like it's a tremendous overview of all the stuff that's going on. I guess as like a quick synopsis of some of those things that you're touching on, Angelo, because they are really important. We see questions in the chat now around like, well, what really is a blockchain, and okay, these stable coins, kind of how do they work at a super high level? When they even invented the first cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, right? There were these things they were trying to solve for in the financial sector, right? In terms of the ability to trace transactions really effectively and not manipulate the records, the ability to ensure that there wouldn't be a big injection of supply that devalues everyone else's holdings. You can think about the US dollar getting printed and how that impacts things like inflation. The price of Bitcoin, right, the volatility of that price made it really hard for it to function as a currency, right? This cryptocurrency quickly became a misnomer. It became this investment where you could still move it really efficiently from position A to position B. You could move into and out of these positions. You knew that they wouldn't inject a bunch of Bitcoin all at once. It became kind of the store of value. But stable coins, like what you're describing, Angelo, give you all of those cool effects of like a blockchain-based digital currency, but just peg that value to a fiat currency like the US dollar. So you can have that stable value that you know you're going to get every time you access that crypto and try to move it cross borders or from position A to position B. But it moves a lot more efficiently, right? You can send it faster. You can automate the sending of it. You can write code that create a process of moving it at a certain timeline or when a certain kind of IoT thing gets triggered. The technology itself just allows for this really efficient transfer of value from position A to position B. And then based on that, like you're saying, Angelo, you could have it in an account. And let's say in between trades, when you're trading cryptocurrency, you could earn interest on it because you're lending that currency to an exchange in the same way you might be lending your dollars to a bank and earning interest on it there. Is that kind of a good overview of just kind of stable coins and how they operate within the ecosystem?
Yeah, that's perfect, Pat. And again, we highlight here if you compare that to status quo, for example, especially like in emerging markets or in some contexts, it's hard to get these assets, or it's not easy, for example,
Mm-hmm.
for an organization to open a financial account. And so, like the opportunities opened by Web3 just highlights, the accessibility as well as like the convenience of these digital assets for nonprofits and any organization that we're talking about. Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, I want to kick it back over to Peter real quick. So, as a relatively small nonprofit, compared to to Save the Children's and other orgs that are fundraising in the crypto space, the Water Project has still managed to raise millions of dollars in cryptocurrency. You've raised crypto really effectively. You've raised it consistently every single year for a number of years. For the nonprofits on the call, we're really trying to get a feel for, okay, I'm learning about this technology, but what does it mean to me? Can you share a bit about how you've incorporated crypto and NFTs into your fundraising strategy? And what advice would you give to nonprofits, in particular smaller, mid-sized nonprofits who can't really just leverage a giant brand and tweet a couple times a year, but need to have a couple impactful strategies when it comes to tapping into Web3?
Yeah, so this is my favorite topic, a lot to unpack here. So I'll jump right in. And this just comes from, I think I mentioned in my first answer was us kind of learning by bumbling through it. So we're going to save you some of the bumbling, hopefully, and you can kind of jump in as you're comfortable. So I think 3 key points here, and I'll dive into each of them. The first is be ready. The second is to be visible. And then to be thankful. We're going to talk about all 3 of those things. So what do I mean by be ready? And this is a big one. And so I'll jump even into one of the QA questions, right off the bat was, we've only had one person express interest in donating crypto in the last 2 years. Is it still worth us getting into the crypto world? Taylor, yes, it absolutely is worth it, because you don't know who else is lurking in your donor file that you already talked to, that's already in your newsletter list, that's already in your community of giving, that actually have crypto or have family members that have crypto and are kind of puzzled as what to do with this gain that they may be sitting on. And that was our story. I'll go back. For us, the way it started initially was someone introduced crypto to me in a garage, and serendipitously, like 2 weeks later, we got contacted by a donor who wanted to give some crypto, and we had no idea what to do with it. We had no plan. The board, I didn't know what it was, except for that one conversation I'd had some 7 or 8 years ago in a garage. Probably similar experience with folks on this call of how you've interacted with crypto. You may have heard a couple news blurbs, or maybe you've just heard all the bad news about it. The first thing to do is to get your board educated. Your board's going to make the call about whether you can accept this or not. And this call is most likely to happen, and Pat can share some of the statistical numbers of gift sizes and what the average, first gifts are for people that are giving crypto. They're big gifts. And I say that because you're going to be potentially presented with an opportunity to accept a large gift for your organization that will also most likely be anonymous through a currency that you have not dealt with before. And all of those things are really hard to deal with in real time because you don't want to lose the gift. The donor, you don't want the donor to feel nervous that you don't know how to handle it, that they may send it into a black hole somewhere and it get lost. You want to be able to communicate to the donor the confidence that you know what to do with it, and that your board's on board, and the anonymity is a-okay, and all of those things are true. And so it's some sitting with board, it's the development director just asking for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour in the next board call to sit with senior leadership and talk about the opportunity that is there. Don't paint a picture that crypto is going to come in the first 2 weeks. It may not. It most likely won't. There's some legwork for this to get up and running, but you want to be ready for when it happens. The second, and as you're introducing it, remind your board, and we've known this from our experience, and I think Pat has an example of an organization just recently that received an over $1 million gift for the organization. It was their largest gift ever of any kind. And it was in a cause that I saw the nexus to the crypto space. And the point being, there are donors in the crypto space that have an affinity to your cause, no matter what it is. We happen to be one of the first charities that received money from what was the Pineapple Fund. This was a donor that had about $56 million to give away, US dollar equivalent. this was quite a number of years ago, and it actually, I think, initiated or was right at the birth of Giving Block themselves. But what happened was he went out and contacted organizations that he had an affinity to, a cause that he wanted to help with. He didn't know much about the organizations, and no one knew anything about crypto. And he had to convince us that he was legitimate, or she or it might have been a sentient pineapple. We're not sure. It was a completely anonymous gift. And what was so fascinating to me about the other 55 $1 million gifts that he gave was the spread of causes and things that she or the sentient pineapple cared about. You would find yourself in this list. I mean, almost anybody in the call, you will find some affinity to that. My favorite was $500,000 to a animal clinic in Chicago. We got $500,000 overnight. And I remember having the conversation with their CEO as we tried to convince her that this was a legitimate thing. So get everybody ready, and don't underestimate. That's another point I want to make, and I'll move on to the be visible. Don't underestimate who might be able to give these gifts. One of our favorite donors, not here at the Water Project, that's given us crypto a couple of times, gave because their son had said, "Hey, y'all need to buy some Bitcoin." And this was like 9-10 years ago when it cost nothing. And so they did on a whim, and they stuck it, in a virtual drawer somewhere. And then many years later came to find out it was worth a whole lot of money. And they were so excited to be able to offer the Water Project the gain from that money. And you know what? If we had sat down and segmented our email list to decide who we're going to advertise that we accept crypto to, you know who would not have been on that list? Them. They don't fit any demographic we would have come up with or imagined would have been a crypto donor. We were wrong, and you're wrong too. That your crypto donors are your donors. They look exactly like everybody in your file. I
want to jump in, Peter. Sorry, just one quick thing on that. For the big donations that we see coming through the Giving Block, so many come from people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s. We had an 80-year-old donate Bitcoin the other day. Didn't really understand how the technology works. Again, diversified into it because conversations with their loved ones, their kids, friends of their kids, people within their sector, people that they work with. Like, there's so many people who have cryptocurrency who are on the older end of the spectrum because they're getting into it from the younger folks they're hanging out with. So just as like a quick aside, 94% of crypto users are millennials and Gen Zs. Gen X and above hold more than half of crypto wealth, just from that light diversification into crypto, because those portfolios are so big. But please, continue with your point. But oftentimes nonprofits will segment to people who are like 19 to 22 and then send a crypto email. And it's like, it's an overly proactive need to like segment particularly to particular community.
Yeah. We don't do that anymore for sure. And the last thing I want to point out on the planning, on the being ready, is have some imagination around the board and leadership table of what would happen if a windfall gift came in. And this is because big gifts can hurt small orgs. They just can. And in the Pineapple Fund, one of the biggest concerns that they communicated to me when they were making the gift was, how can we be sure the folks we're giving it to won't be hurt by the gift? And I just thought that was such a smart question from the Pineapple Fund, which was, we know that dropping $2 million off on an organization that has a $2 million budget can oftentimes cause them to do some silly things like run out and hire 5 or 10 people that then become a fixed expense that continues on in the years when they're not getting windfall gifts. So invest wisely and invest transparently. The crypto donor understands investment. They understand return of putting something away for a little bit of time and turning it into something even bigger. It's like right in front of them. And so celebrate that with them. Don't feel this need to run out and spend 100% on program. Build your org and let your crypto donors know that you're going to be building your org with it. That turns that crypto donor that is giving on a big gain, that actually wanted to see even more gain before they give, you paint a picture for them of how the gains can continue for their crypto as your organization grows and expands and scales, not just in the year the gift is given, but going forward. Be ready with the plan. Second, we just talked about it, be visible, be everywhere. Talk about crypto everywhere. You don't need to go crazy with it, but it needs to be everywhere. So don't make it a campaign, right? Because that's going to catch 30,000 people. You're aiming for 10 or 20. No, but make sure that on your donate button on your website, that crypto is mentioned. On other ways to give, it's mentioned. Don't bury it 4 links deep. Make sure it's up front. Put crypto in the footer at the bottom of the web page, right? We accept crypto. We accept cryptocurrency. What you're doing is signaling to those folks that may have it, the ones that you can't tease out of your newsletter, that you're ready, that you're able to do this. You may spark that imagination. And then those that are just looking for affinity of a cause, so they're just Google searching you, they love giving water to kids in Kenya. That in our case, that's how they come to the website. Make sure they're able to see in the first 8 seconds when they're making a decision about whether to hang out at your website or not, that they see themselves as a donor. So be obvious about this thing. Talk openly about accepting crypto in your newsletter and your webinars. Mention it wherever you can. If you want to go a little bit deeper, the next step is to create maybe an offer and an impact statement tied to what you could do with a big crypto gift. Go big. What would it look like if someone showed up and funded half your budget for the year or all of your budget for a year? There are crypto donors out there that would love to see themselves in that scenario. There's no guarantee that it happens, but what does it hurt? You're talking directly to a crypto donor, painting a picture for them that maybe they could really see themselves. And then within that, remember, this is basics, right? Tell the story. It's all about story. Help crypto donors. If as you're understanding how that community works, as you start to engage with the community on the social platforms, on Twitter, on Telegram, get in those communities if you can. Just listen at first. You're not going to ask for money. You're just going to listen and learn. Be polite. As you do that, see how your story intersects with what's important in the crypto space. And I'll tell you the 2 most important things. This is the big giveaway. It's transparency and accountability. Believe it or not, it's not anonymity. Believe it or not, it's not hiding. Believe it or not, it's not greed. This is not what the crypto community is interested in. When they are approaching a nonprofit to do some good with the gains they've seen, they're looking for the kinds of accountability and transparency that crypto brings to the financial world. They want to see that in our world. And a lot of us are really good at it. A lot of us can get better at it. But if you want to really do well with this donor and even retain them and see follow-on giving in crypto, accountability and transparency. Tell upfront the impact that they will see on the other side of the gift. Help them to understand how they can share with their community. Now, a lot of you are going to be immediately asking, but I thought they were anonymous. How can we talk to them? You may not be able to in a one-to-one email. So create a space on your website where you can talk to them publicly. Talk about the gift on your social channels. If you can, oftentimes, though the gift is given anonymously, it'll be given by maybe an NFT group, or maybe there's a group that's building their own meme coin, or they're building some kind of crypto Web3 product. They have a network and community that they're going to be talking to about this gift. And though they may obfuscate behind sort of an anonymous donation, they can communicate socially and with that little transaction ID that everyone sees because it's all public, that they gave that particular gift. You jumping on that thread, saying thank you, being there, acknowledging, providing social proof is a big part of the thanking process. And it's also how you take a step toward their community and join the conversation. If you can, stick around and don't just say thank you. Like, ask questions, get to know this group. Which that really leads to my next one, which is to be thankful and be public about it. So I always say anonymous donations, very public thank yous. Make sure that your anonymous donors have an opportunity to feel that thankful experience that you share with your other major and middle donors. I hope all your donors, but where you have those one-on-one contacts, have that conversation publicly. Let everybody see it. You'll invite others to it. And I'm convinced, absolutely convinced, that some of our Windfall folks have seen these anonymous postings and then responded with a follow-up gift. It's too serendipitous and timing of those things that's not happening. So where you can't share one-on-one, share one-to-many. And there's just no reason, look, from my view, from my opinion, this is the last I'll say on this little topic is, I know there will be some trepidation on boards and in senior leadership that have seen a lot of the negative stories around crypto. This is the positive story. This is the good news. This we can shape the narrative of the way crypto is being used to further social impact and do some really good things in the world. And so rather than be afraid of saying thank you to somebody who's done something really good for the world because there's this one or a few bad actors out there, like there are in any financial product, be the ones to celebrate the good and the social impact and raise the awareness of these good stories, which I know we want to talk about some more in this group today. So I'll kind of stop there and leave, I'll tease up Q&A at the end. If anybody's got some follow-on questions, we can pick it up there.
It's a great high level overview of all the stuff going on in a nonprofit's head when they're trying to get into this. How do they fundraise? What about the anonymous gifts? What about talking to the board? As a quick aside, I just want to again highlight the link to book a demo with the Giving Block that's pinned in the chat there. And then also, even if you don't book that, just going to thegivingblock.com and poking around and reading resources. To Peter's point about questions that come up for you and your leadership and your board, and then trying to figure out like what'll be automated, what won't. I can't tell you how many times conversations stall out at a nonprofit because an individual did their own research without kind of starting in the position of talking to a Peter or, looking at thegivenblock.com and knowing, oh, the sale of it is automated. Like I've seen board presentations that talk about the volatility and how they'll sell it and the process for this. And they're like months into constructing it. They're like, oh, that problem's been resolved. Or this anonymous donation thing that everyone's like really rattled about. It's not our gift acceptance policy. It's like, oh, that's a feature you could turn off. Like there's no need to accept anonymous crypto donations if that's not something you're comfortable with. Like a conversation with a member of our team, and even if you don't want to do that, just going on the site and learning about some of those things in advance of that can prevent you spending a bunch of Saturday afternoons trying to like crack the code on some problem that maybe has already been worked through. Because that's always a bummer when people get stuck, like really stuck on a problem that's actually kind of already been solved for. So I want to kick it back to Sara once more before we go into some round robin and some Q&A. We talked a lot about crypto fundraising from Peter's perspective, and then with Angelo, like a really nice deep dive on stablecoins. You talked about your background when it comes to NFTs, but could you quickly just tell the nonprofits on the call at a high level what an NFT is and what about the technology really made you want to build a career around this?
Yeah, so NFT stands for non-fungible token, which basically means it's something that can't be replaced. It's kind of a one-of-a-kind item. And so NFTs can be things like one-of-one artworks. It can be something that's just a representation of something like a membership card or a ticket or something of that sort. Or it can be, in my case with Women and Weapons, a large set of generative artwork, which was derived from some of my hand-illustrated artworks, right? And so what's unique about it is that it's been ledgered, it's on the blockchain. So all of this information associated with this NFT is now on the blockchain. And so what's special about that is it actually shows ownership, right? And so you're able to look at, say, one NFT and you're able to see that I was the person who created it and Pat was the person who purchased it. And then after Pat sold it, Peter was the next person that purchased it. What else is cool about it is that you can actually reward those people. Say you have, in my case as an artist, you have a loyal collector, somebody who's been collecting your artwork and holding it for a long time. You can then go back and you can, give those people different discounts or whatever it may be. You can stay in contact with them. You can provide them with airdrops of other artworks, whatever it might be, basically as continuous thank yous and staying in contact with those individuals. And so it's a very interesting technology, especially I think for artists like myself. And also there's opportunities for royalties in perpetuity, right? Which for artists, I think was an absolute game changer because, as we know, there's a term that is starving artists, and that is a very real term. And so whenever many of us, I think, heard the term royalties in perpetuity, even if it is just 5% of your secondary sale, I mean, that's something that's really special for ongoing opportunities. And so for Women and Weapons in relation to philanthropy, for example, one of the things that we really wanted to focus on was leaving the world in a better place than we came into it, right? And so we wanted to donate 5% of our initial sales and then 5% of our secondary royalties continuously to the Malala Fund, because Women and Weapons was really meant to kind of showcase the way that women were perceived in the mid-century era and kind of flipping that on its head and also utilizing these physical weapons as kind of the metaphors and the symbols of the various weapons that women carry into their everyday. And so we thought it would be really powerful to be able to continually donate to the Malala Fund so that education can be a woman's weapon and allow them for opportunities to independence. And so I feel like that was kind of a long-winded answer to your question, Pat. I apologize. But that's I think why it was really special to me as an artist, is that there's a lot of opportunities for artists there, but there's a lot of opportunities as well to do good in the world. And we've seen a lot of different Web3 and NFT and crypto projects do the same. Like, for example, we've raised over $170,000 for the Malala Fund. Bored Ape Yacht Club has allocated 6.25% of their ape coin to the Jane Goodall Foundation. World of Women has donated over $2 million to essential causes around the world. Flower Girls has donated $600,000 to various children's charities around the world. The Kova Project has helped put forward philanthropic income towards women's wellness in Africa. There's a lot of groups that are doing really, really phenomenal things in the world via NFTs as a catalyst. And this is something that we just didn't really see before this came about. And it allows a worldwide group of individuals, as opposed to just a localized group of individuals, like I said before, to come together, to rally around something, and to really be able to make a positive impact. So it's unfortunate that there's a lot of, negative stories out in the media, about crypto, about NFTs, whenever there is such positive impact that's happening here. And so, kind of to Peter's point, I think it's very important for us as founders to continually make a splash about the good things that are happening in this space and the good things that we can continuously do with this technology.
That's an awesome rundown on NFTs in general. It's a good note too about like the media coverage of it. Like, we talk about it constantly. It's like nobody writes a story about every time someone gets in a, self-driving car and it takes them exactly where they're trying to go, right? But anytime it's the only time that ever makes it into the news, especially when you have hyper efficient systems like cryptocurrency and blockchains. So I think right now we'll pivot to the Q&A, the questions that we've got in the Q&A. I see one popping up on the screen here. And we'll just kick these over to the group. So what are the regulations for crypto donations, specifically KYC, anti-money laundering regulations? Does the SEC and banks not raise all sorts of questions when receiving crypto donations through an anonymous source? So this is a great question. I can start on this one. So in general, the regulations around crypto donations, so one from the IRS, it's treated just like a stock donation. So the main reason that tens of millions of people in the US are more incentivized to give with their crypto than with any other donation method is because they don't pay capital gains taxes on the crypto they donate. So this has been reinforced year over year over year by the IRS. It's an investment. It's treated just like stock. So if someone gives you $1 million in Bitcoin, they could save up to 200 grand ish, let's say, in state and federal taxes, depending on the price they purchased it at, in addition to getting that $1 million write-off against their income. So if they had to liquidate that crypto and send it to you, you'd get the $1 million, they'd get $1 million write-off, but the IRS would come knocking for an extra 200 grand in tax liability. So it's a massive tax incentive to give this way, and it's been formalized by the IRS and consistently reinforced. In terms of KYC and money laundering, this is the same set of rules that applies to nonprofits for all donation methods. So there's a difference between the charity's donation form and then the actual accounts that people use to buy into and sell cryptocurrencies. So there's an exchange account somewhere where they needed to open an account and buy that crypto. They need to use their passport and ID, like all this background check stuff. That happens at the point of the exchange. And then when they send it to you, the exchange who's receiving it on the back end here has a list of blacklisted wallet addresses, sanctioned countries where transactions can't come in from. They maintain that layer. Like, it's not up to a nonprofit to figure out if the credit card that was donated to you was stolen, for instance. Your donation form and whether or not the donor is anonymous actually doesn't have any overlap or application there. It's a big misconception in the space where I think some people think the nonprofit donation form where they ask for the name and the email is where the KYC AML layer is happening. That is not what the FBI and the DEA use to figure out who is a criminal. That is for you to send them a Christmas card. So when we say anonymous, we don't mean you are erasing that layer of security that checks for blacklisted addresses, or you're stopping the exchange from checking IDs at the door when people open their accounts. All of that happens regardless of whether or not you collect information. If you feel better knowing who that donor is and having that in your records, you can use that as an additional check, and it depends really on your gift acceptance policies. But all of these rules and regulations that apply to most banks and financial institutions also apply to crypto exchanges, and that's ultimately what keeps you safe. I don't know if anyone has an addition to that, or we just bounce to other questions.
Yeah, I will. I'll jump in because
Yeah.
I think we had that trepidation when the Pineapple Fund showed up to our door, and in fact at that time even the exchanges really didn't know what the rules were, and so it was quite a challenge to figure out who would even take the $1 million in Bitcoin at the time and convert it into fiat. I had some personal connections in the space that allowed us to get the AML done. But the beauty of the Giving Block is they're also doing that level of check. So they are running these addresses through these AML checks before the money even hits your account, and they'll get in the middle of that for you. So it's another layer of protection, even though, as Pat said, it really is taking care of where the money entered the system. They do these additional checks to make sure that there weren't any nefarious spinnings of that money as it was on the blockchain. And that's the beauty of the blockchain, which again is a misconception in the broader community, which is that it's anonymous on the chain. It isn't. The whole point of the blockchain is it's incredibly public. And because it's public, it's highly traceable. And because it's highly traceable, law enforcement uses the tool. They have entire departments that are using the blockchain tools to track criminals down. So it's actually a lot easier to catch. How many here know what they would do if someone left a briefcase of money on the front porch of your nonprofit tomorrow? Did you know you actually have to take that to the police and have them look at the serial numbers? I bet you didn't know that. Some of us might have just quickly taken it to the bank. The bank wouldn't take it either. If it was over 10K, they would have said, whoa. You can't just drop off 10K in cash. That doesn't work. So know that, groups like the Giving Block they got you covered. And I'll go even so far as to say, because we've been doing this for so long, we have had experiences with law enforcement, and law enforcement's on your side. I'll leave it at that. They don't come at you as the actor that they're going after. They're there to work with you, and they've been wonderful when we've needed. Incredibly rare. It's super, super, super rare. We have had far more encounters on the credit card side with law enforcement than we have had on the crypto side. So let that be even more kind of evidence in that camp.
That's all I was going to say at the end there. Yeah, we've processed more crypto donations than every other platform combined. We've had one set of donations that was tied to a hack, and we gave it back. And it's a ratios thing. If you are afraid of taking crypto donations because you're worried about money laundering or the source of the funds, then you should be terrified of taking US dollars, because we also take credit card donations. It's exponentially more common, and all of the research supports that. Yes, there are hacks and bad things that happen in crypto, exponentially less than in traditional finance. So it's not that it's a perfect system, but to Peter's point, it's more traceable and highly regulated.
And the point of even this question, I think, is not to sow any doubt in this group. It's because your board's going to be asking you these questions, and so we're trying to prep you for what those will be and have some good answers, because there are really good answers to these questions.
Definitely. So we've got more questions here in the Q&A. I'm going to do, this is a great question, I think. Are emerging markets that Angelo is speaking about donating regularly? We work in a lot of those areas, but don't seem to be connecting for donations. So I think that's a great question coming from April here that we'll put up on the screen. For you, Angelo, just kind of connecting the dots between the difference between what is a good pool of individuals to fundraise donations from versus where there are areas where the technology itself, crypto, can be utilized and find use cases for, like you said, international remittances and transfers.
Yeah, so these emerging markets definitely are very active in crypto. In fact, our own analysis is definitely it's also because the areas where the power of the technology can really add value. And so we see a lot of activities. For example, I come from Southeast Asia. There's a lot of adoption in the Philippines and Indonesia. And to Peter's point, I think crypto gives us access to a new base of donors and users that we did not think about before. And for example, to Sarah's point as well, these are, for example, art collectors or your followers who's looking for new ways to engage with the community as well as with your cause. And so the short answer to April's question is yes, we've seen a lot of activity and transaction here. But the other perspective that I want to provide is I think the power of Web3 and crypto for me are not just on the donor side, but actually the level of talent also on the builder side. So as a foundation, we work a lot with like entrepreneurs as well as like startups, no, that utilize crypto to make social impact as well as like economic transactions in the developing world. So I'll cite one example. For example, Ethic Hub, they leverage on crypto as well as like blockchain to provide credit to smallholder farmers in Latin America, coffee farmers in particular. And so, like, if you look at, the ability to hold crypto, you have options not only to convert it to fiat, and it's seamless through portals as well as like platforms like Giving Block, but also use it with builders, no, to develop like new ways to create impact and to really like forward your cause.
That's a great overview. Yeah, I think, again, just tying it back to platform like Yellow Card, right? I just think about in these developing areas where people are using it all, like a company like that started very similar to Celo, trying to solve some of these problems around like how you use money and move money and do financial systems more efficiently where it actually counts. When it comes to stable coins, particularly in developing markets, right? These are some of the most common ways that they move funds. This started from folks trying to move, in particular from like the US, like there are people, they try to send $200 to their family in Africa or in South America, wherever it might be. And it's $100, right? Sometimes like move the money from position A to position B, especially when you're liquidating and moving between currencies. The ability to move funds really efficiently, I think is like one of the best use cases and why these technologies are actually important for things like banking the unbanked and stuff that gets brought up so commonly when we talk about stable coins. I want to hit on a question that was in the chat earlier in the conversation. It didn't make it to the Q&A, but I think it's important. What is the difference between nonprofits who want to get into NFTs and want to get into cryptocurrency? So I'll kick this one over to Sara. When it comes to a nonprofit who really wants to get into NFTs, that can mean different things, right? You can work with a partner who mints NFTs and then you auction those off as a fundraising method. You can use it as a way of growing your audience, like get ambassadors who are into the space and kind of expand it, do it community stuff. Like for a nonprofit who's like, I want to get into NFTs, could you talk through a little bit like what that looks like? Because I think some folks think they need to set up their own wallets and become creators themselves.
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, you really need to start jumping into Twitter and Discord. And whenever I say jumping into Discord, I will really highlight, don't click on any links while you're there. But the reason I say that is because that's where a lot of the communities that are very crypto focused generally hang out. And so if you do want to get involved in that way, I mean, as a nonprofit, I've recommended so many different nonprofits to sign up for the Giving Block because they make it extremely seamless and very easy for people on the nonprofit side. You can do something like, for example, partnering with a few artists, asking them to say in exchange for, a percentage split, sell some artworks where some of the artworks percentage wise can go towards your foundation. That obviously will allow for some marketing opportunities in addition. But I think one of the things that we found, for example, is that people love to get something in exchange. Purchase something. They get the artwork. And in addition to that, they're also donating towards something great, which I think is why so many of the NFT projects that have a percentage of whatever it is that they're doing going towards something good have been successful, is because people want to not only have an opportunity to be part of a community, receive an artwork, but also do good in the world, have been so successful, is because people get to participate in all three of those kind of different worlds that are kind of getting melded together through this technology. And so I really think that the first thing that I would say that's important, if you are a philanthropic group wanting to get into crypto, wanting to get into NFTs, is to first jump into Twitter. There's also a mass of different Twitter spaces that are available for people who are very deeply ingrained in crypto, in NFTs. And this is an opportunity where you can kind of in real time get information about what this space is like, what the community is like, because oftentimes I know a lot of people want to go and they want to learn about NFTs, they want to go learn about crypto, and they head over to YouTube. However, if you're looking at a YouTube video that's from 2021, that information might be significantly outdated. And the reason that I say that is because this space moves incredibly fast. We have a lot of innovators here who are constantly building, and therefore the technology is rapidly evolving and rapidly changing. And so I find oftentimes that it's best to get your information regarding this space through Twitter spaces that are happening on a daily cadence. And I think, the next part of this is to really engage with these various communities and engage with them authentically. I think one thing that's true about the space that we're in is that inauthenticity is quickly snuffed out. And so if you're able to find, say, an existing crypto community that maybe is not already partnered with a nonprofit, perhaps approach them very authentically and, kindly, and see if that's something that potentially they'd be open to. And it doesn't have to be the biggest NFT community or biggest crypto community or biggest meme coin community or whatever it may be. Just start approaching people that you feel like your organization might vibe with or might jive with, or, have synchronicities associated with them. There's also things like DAOs, and these are, I know, a lot of words that I'm just throwing out there. This is, one of our difficult barriers to entry is the fact that we have a lot of jargon that's difficult to understand. But if y'all want to Google DAOs and meme coins and NFT communities and all of that, I recommend you go do your own research on it. But finding groups that, say, resonate with what your philanthropic mission is, and then potentially, seeing if there's an opportunity to partner with them. Malala Fund did not come to us. We actually found them because one of the things that I found was they do a really phenomenal job at going to these underserved communities at a very grassroots level to create this systemic change. But that was a lot of information, but those are a few of my starting points for you guys. And I will be in the lounge after this for a little bit if there's some more questions on this point.
Yeah. Can I add a quick example here, Pat? This week actually is our mainnet anniversary because Celo was launched on Earth Day. And just to Sarah's point, I think finding an NFT artist to partner with might be a good entry point for a lot of our nonprofits. So for this week, for example, we partnered with an NFT artist named Amber Vittoria, and she launched a collection that she listed in the Celo NFT marketplace named celosphere.xyz. I invite friends and folks to check it out because, again, this is an easy way. Over the years, as Sara has mentioned, the space has evolved so that nonprofits without very technical backgrounds can also access this tool for community engagement and fundraising. So it's possible, and definitely an energizing way to engage your community.
That's awesome. Super good rundown and actual next steps that nonprofits can get into. I'm gonna back down through a couple questions quickly that I just want to rip through because they're applying to things that Sara and Peter and Angelo are saying. One is from Elise here. It says, our nonprofit recently took an intentional pause from X because it no longer aligns with our values, and our engagement has dramatically declined. Can we jump into crypto without being on Twitter? So the answer is 100% yes, right? So we talked about Twitter and Discord and Reddit. There's all these interesting places that younger people tend to gravitate toward versus, like we talked about in the earlier presentation, Facebook trending a bit older. How you mix those things together is totally up to you. And there's a lot of interesting and innovative ways to approach that. I also want to make a really big point that nonprofits miss on. This is the part that Peter and I are always talking to nonprofit clients of the Giving Block about. And everybody rolls their eyes because one of the most exciting things about crypto and NFTs, new donors, new younger donors, they're shiny, they're coming out of nowhere, we're finding them somewhere else. The vast majority of crypto donations come from existing donors, right, that are already primed to give to you. They already have an affinity for the mission. There are 600 million crypto users, right? It's at a scale that I think a lot of nonprofits don't understand. It is almost statistically impossible for any nonprofit of any size to not have crypto users in their audience. If you are a hyper-localized nonprofit with 50 donors, it could hypothetically happen, but the statistical possibilities, right, of you finding more net new crypto donors versus ones within your audience, that pretty much only happens when nonprofits choose to go that way. Some nonprofits, they take crypto and they don't add it to their Ways to Give page. There's no link on their donate page. It's not an option in their capital campaign emails. It's not in the pamphlet at the gala as an option. It's not in the folder at a major gifts meeting, right? It's not in the direct mailer as a little sheet of paper. I'm getting a little thumbs up, probably the way I'm moving my hands. But it's just not there where you can scan the QR code and send it. So people are convinced their idea of what crypto donors are in their audience are with no exposure to their audience at all, that this is an option. The one or two people over the course of a multi-year period that call them to say, can I send you this stuff? That's not how it works, right? If you think about your donate page, we always say this to nonprofits. If you took away the donate page, if you click the donate button, or if you removed it entirely, or if when someone clicked it, it was like, hey, call us or send us an email if you want to send us something. And then the donor had to piece it together from there. It's like, do you think you would make as much money? Probably not. So in short, every nonprofit, the starting point isn't Twitter. It's not finding net new donors. The NFT stuff is like an awesome and starting place, I think, for growth opportunities. But it all begins with, do your existing donors, classic marketing, rule of 7 stuff, over the course of the year, see crypto as an option that they could potentially consider. And then from that consideration stage, they hand raise into it and they send donations. This is the magic sauce behind the Water Project's fundraising success. And it's a starting point for everybody. So when you get to that growth stage, Elise, I just want to say, like, yes, you can skip over the Twitter piece and you can find NFT partners more organically on some of these platforms. You can do Reddit, Discord, other platforms for sure. Is there an overall, okay, I'll hit a couple quick ones, sorry. Is there an overall giving percentage increase that orgs experience when they start accepting crypto? This is the exact same answer, right? There are so many nonprofits where we always show a picture of a donate Bitcoin button that just has cobwebs on it. Like even Save the Children, who started taking crypto in 2013, when we started working with Ettore, like he was trying to break the walls down at that organization just to get a tweet out that they accept cryptocurrency, right? We built a program, we finally got them to just speak about the fact that it was an option. And they went from raising almost nothing to hundreds of thousands of dollars, and now it's a 7-figure plus annual revenue channel for that nonprofit. It depends on you. It depends on what your audience looks like, how you fundraise, how serious you are about integrating the option. You don't have to run crypto campaigns. You don't have to make your own cryptocurrencies. You don't have to become an NFT artist. But if you're not going to put that option in front of your donors, right? If the capital campaign emails are going to go out and you're not going to have crypto and even things like stock, DAF, like these other giving options, if they're not there in front of your donors, then the outcomes aren't going to be there. It's not about what type of nonprofit it is, big, small, cause area. It's ultimately how often are your donors exposed to this option on the existing donor pillar. And then for net new donor pillars, like we talked about, are you going to be going on Twitter and posting? Do you have ideas for a press release? Are you building blog posts that are SEO content that create kind of flows into your organization? It depends on how you want to tackle, block and tackle and approach the fundraising. I will kick this next question over to Peter. It says, Peter, I'm intrigued by the inclination of donors to endorse innovative fundraising mediums. Have you observed any noticeable trends among non-tech savvy or non-crypto users who exhibit a strong inclination to align themselves with innovation? And can you speak to their motivation? It's a very intricate question.
Yeah, I'm reading it one more
unpack. I think what they're asking is, now that you fundraise crypto, are you seeing donors come out of the woodwork that are interested in you just on the basis of the fact that you're innovative, and you're finding other ways to capitalize on that?
Yeah, I think that goes to knowing the community that you're in and that you're entering, and to speaking the language a little bit. So we mentioned that there can be a lot of jargon in this, and that's actually a signal that you're in a community. At some point, some folks call these like tribes, right? Tribes and communities have their own language, their own codex, so to speak, and it's a way to kind of instantly communicate that you have an affinity or that you've done your homework and that you're not just kind of someone that's there to collect donations. Like people will sniff that out immediately. Do you want to be a part of the community or not? And so I think for the Water Project, yes, that's been true for us, but it's probably because we talked about crypto from the very first mention of crypto as not just a means to accept donations, but as something that could be transformative to the work that we do. So we immediately, like right out of the gate, we saw, and this is still future state, the ability to really knock down a lot of the financial waste in moving money around that we experience as a nonprofit. So like when you think about how much money gets lost literally from someone's wallet donating $10 with a credit card all the way through to Western Kenya after all the wire transfers and credit card fees and bank fees and all of that, it's like 10% of the donation gets lost to just financial nonsense. With crypto, again, a little bit future state here, there's a path to that being almost zero. And then really kind of building in some exponential accountability and transparency and through the blockchain, again, future state. As we talked about those things, this is exactly the kind of, I think, donors that found a particular affinity to what we were doing. Doesn't mean we all have to do that. It just means that we saw something where there was a nexus to the work we were doing and some of what we were learning about how blockchain worked and some of what it offered. And by just entering that conversation, even naively, maybe posing questions about what do you think about this? It shows a very strong, affinity to those groups. And if there is the tightest, affinity is around transparency and accountability, right? We have the ability to show donors more and more of the direct daily impact of their giving through the technology that's in front of us. And we've embraced that alongside crypto. And because of it, I love watching a year later, the crypto donors celebrate the reporting that they got back from the water project within their communities. They'll get the final reports of exactly where their project was, pictures of the community. We do stories for absolutely everyone, and it's a 1-to-1 correlation. And to watch those folks show back up on Twitter a year later in their community and celebrate, oh my goodness, I never knew we were going to get to see this deep into the impact of our $50,000 or $25,000 community gift. Letting those 200 people celebrate that, pretty awesome. So yeah, I think that's where it's been for us. And that's where we all need to innovate. Every one of us on this call needs to innovate around transparency and accountability. That's how we will thrive going forward.
I love it. I see we have 30 seconds left on the clock here. I want to say, for anyone who didn't get their questions answered, please come to the 2:00 session where we're doing a deep dive on crypto. Real rundown on kind of ecosystem level data and unpacking the donor profiles and what makes them tick. I want to thank Peter for sure, as always, for running down what nonprofits can do when it comes to fundraising crypto and the real world use cases. Sara, thank you for being here. The NFT space has been like a huge part of our growth as a platform. We've seen more people connecting on that front. And definitely recommend more nonprofits who are fundraising crypto, looking for NFT artists to partner with. There's so many out there who are looking for those opportunities. My brother is a professional artist who went to Savannah College of Art and Design. And one of his biggest opportunities was working with, he's awesome. But working with Arthur Hayes and Melton Demirs, we did a COVID Heroes project that my brother was the artist behind, and raised tons of money for charities, like tens of thousands of dollars. It was just like this really cool experience where he's usually doing kind of corporate level art. Also, separately, hit me up on LinkedIn if you're hiring artists at a nonprofit. I'm desperately trying to get him out of the for-profit sector. I don't know if he'll say yes, but he's awesome. I don't want to get him out of the sweatshops of marketing firms. And then Celo, of course, just Angelo in general, again, like one of the big projects that got us into crypto when we were starting the Giving Block. We went out there and met everybody on the team. It's also where we met Chris from Yellow Card. The use cases of actually using cryptocurrency to move funds for nonprofits who are doing like cash distribution and international remittances, like it's something that should be taken seriously. And then Celo is an awesome organization that actually wants to partner with charities. So if you're in the crypto space, you're not doing anything with Celo, definitely hit them up and see if there are more ways to partner. Yeah, thank you all for being here. This is the best crypto panel I feel like we've done in forever.